It's my feel-good breakfast show.
Welcome back to Feel Good Breakfast Show. This is Expresso, and you're live on S3. I have my psychology polo neck on for a reason. We all have that mental list of criteria we're looking for in a potential partner. Now, sometimes those things happen to be physical. Other times they are more sort of personality preference. Now more than ever before, politics and personal views are becoming an integral part of the dating scene. From climate change to political affiliation, what our other half thinks and says about the world is a significant part of dating. And today we explore this topic with counseling psychologist Sanam Naran, and later we catch up with some people on the street to find out a bit more about their opinions. But welcome, Sanam. Thanks a lot for chatting to us.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited once again.
Okay, so this is a big thing because if you look at all of the extremities of the world, there are a lot of opinions and beliefs that flow around. But let's start at the building blocks of the conversation. In broad terms, how would you describe an individual's worldview?
So I think a worldview is basically how somebody sees the world in very basic terms. It's how they understand and interpret their reality. And this is often informed by their attitudes, their beliefs, their life experiences, religion, culture, their childhoods. And this is sort of what makes our worldview and how we interpret and see the world.
And as you know, Sanam, we live in an increasingly polarized society, especially politically in a South African sort of context. Would you say that this has amplified people's desire to find someone who strictly aligns with their values?
I do think it has played a part in helping people sort of know what they want in a partner, and sort of influencing their decision and what they want in a partner. So I feel like the world is moving towards, being more aware of politics and being more aware of society and everything that influences us as human beings. And I think it has influenced the way we date and the way we sort of look at our partners.
So in your couples counseling experience, how often are the problems you identify tied to a massive difference in worldview?
So funny enough, not at all. So what I've seen in couples therapy is the main issues are surrounding, conflict resolution, how they're able to deal with, having arguments, as well as childhood sort of traumas that each of them have separately and how that influences the relationship. So very little about different worldviews. I think that sort of is, I want to say, the tip of the iceberg, but underneath there's a lot more going on.
So what, if any, are the negative implications of only seeking someone that mirrors your values?
I think that's such an interesting question, but with someone who just mirrors our values, I think we can sort of get into a place of being quite stagnant and not being able to sort of be exposed to different worldviews and differing opinions and beliefs. And that can sort of, keep us in one way of thinking and not being open-minded. So I think that's one of the negatives of that.
And it's very, very simple because, you want to have an open mind, but of course, some people feel a bit safer looking at somebody with a sort of compatible view of the world, which sometimes does close you off, as you mentioned, Sanam. So thanks so much for sharing what you shared so far. I mean, later on, we will hit the streets to discover what our viewers think about dating someone whose worldview differs from there. And of course, psychologist Sanam Naran all joins us again to unpack some of their thoughts. So don't go anywhere to Feel Good Breakfast Show. And talking about thoughts on difference of opinion when it comes to friendship circles, here's Zoe.
It's my feel-good breakfast show.
Welcome back to Feel Good Breakfast Show. This is Expresso on S3. Now, it's Monday, we're talking relationships, and today we asked a simple question. Is it a good idea to date someone with a differing worldview? Hop onto our Expresso Facebook page and give us your 2 cents. We always love seeing it. And before we continue our discussion with psychologist Sanam Naran, let's hear what you have to say about this topic on the street.
So wokeness to me is, I believe, an Americanism for being socially aware.
Wokeness is being aware of other people's opinions.
Wokeness is being alert and being aware of what's going on around you.
Yeah, so politics is important in my relationships, but it's not the predominant factor in the discussions.
Politics is very important to me as an individual.
I won't discuss politics often with my friends, but it does come up in some cases.
So I've been married to my husband for 30 years and he has a different political view to me.
Yes, I come from a diverse background with multiple religions and also ethnicities. And I believe everybody should be their own individual and respect each other.
I'm not religious myself, so everyone I've dated in the past has usually had a different worldview than my own.
I think I would try a relationship with someone from a different religion or belief.
People with a different political opinion, very flexible, because obviously politics, we all have got different opinions, and I think that's the whole basics of politics.
When it comes to different religions or belief systems, I like to learn so that I can understand the individual better.
It's a good thing to get along with people who have different political opinions because they may have thought of something that you've never thought of before.
Lots of open minds, and that's so good to see. But we are back with counseling psychologist and founder of Conscious Psychology, Sanam Naran, to explore these views. Now, Sanam, you heard a couple of the views that came through there, but in your opinion, has wokeness helped or hindered our pursuit of finding that perfect, suitable partner?
I think it's helped and hindered finding a suitable partner. So I think it's a bit of both. In the way that it's hindered us from finding a suitable partner is that we're a lot more picky as a society around what we want, and we have a list of what we want and what we don't want, and that can sometimes hinder us. But at the same time, I think it's a good thing because having both partners that are woke, it does help the relationship, and so I think that's the good part about it.
I think it's because when people have their wokeness, it's kind of attached to their identity, and they feel that compromising anything with regard to their wokeness almost hinders that pathway to the other individual, because you feel like I need my boundaries up, therefore that person can't shift me off those boundaries, which I feel can be quite contentious at the moment, but sometimes unnecessarily, because at the end you actually have to have an open mind and allow room for other people's opinions and allow room for people to actually debate with you in a relationship. And that's actually what I want to ask you about. How important is that, to be open to a proper, healthy debate within a relationship?
So I think that that's so important. I think, when we aren't willing to have these discussions, a lot of conflict can start surfacing in the relationship. A lot of resentment can start building in the relationship. And I think it's important to understand that nobody is going to have the exact same worldview as us, or the same values or the same thoughts. And in a relationship, it's all about compromise. So we have to be open-minded about this. And it's really important to have these discussions in order to, progress in your relationship together.
So, Sanam, I'm not sure if you heard, but doing the rounds on social media is the fact that Will Smith slapped Chris Rock at the Oscars. That's a big thing. And I know that many people are going to have that conversation. Was Will Smith right to slap Chris Rock after Chris Rock made a comment about his wife? Was it inappropriate? Was it planned? So these type of current affairs issues pop up a lot, including politics, especially when it comes to a relationship. Now, these discussions, they can go really too far sometimes, and sometimes that can be a healthy discussion as well. So when it comes to these little disputes and these little ideas that come through into the relationship from the outside world, how do we navigate that sort of area where people feel like it's better to keep politics and discussions about current affairs out of the relationship entirely?
I think it's really important to have these discussions initially at the beginning of your relationship, and to sort of see whether, your partner is open to having these conversations and whether you feel comfortable having these conversations. So there really is no rules to this, but whatever works for you and your relationship, do that. So if you want to keep politics out of your relationship and it works for you, then do that. But if that's something that you both want to have in your relationship, then do that as well. So it's really what works for you.
And definitely, and of course, navigating what works for you is important, and that's where you come in, because I think that people believe that couples counseling is only when something goes wrong, but I think it's so important to actually help you navigate everything in your relationship as well. It's great to have a mediator who can see some of the blind spots to really strengthen your relationship, and that's why we appreciate people like you, Sanam, for joining us in these conversations, and we will be back very soon, wrapping up our relationship segment, hitting the streets once again to hear directly from you. So do stick around. And talking about sticking around, there's something sticky and amazing that you need to see in the kitchen.
It's my feel-good breakfast show.
And I'm sure there could be a debate as to who that was in your relationship. Maybe somebody says, oh, no, I know this person. Maybe it's that person, and then something breaks out. Unfortunately, this happens, especially when your significant other has different worldviews, and that's what we're chatting about and wrapping up with a counseling psychologist and, of course, our guest today, Sanam Naran. Now, just to wrap things up very quickly, I think the big question that we should have asked all the way in the beginning is, when is the right time to bring up your worldview or your religious beliefs or your relationship beliefs or political beliefs in a relationship?
So I think that naturally comes out, in the first few dates, I would say. But I would say that it's best for, to have those conversations and for that to come out in the beginning. So don't wait to the last minute, or don't keep it from your partner. I think it's best to speak about it in the beginning.
And honesty is the best policy. It's important to be open right at the get-go, definitely. But let's just say if something comes out, if a view comes out and it is opposing yours, it's different from yours, how do we navigate that scenario so that it doesn't affect our relationship in a negative way? How do you become more tolerant of your partner's views, especially if maybe fundamentally they go against your own?
So that's an important question. And I think, what's so important is to remember that you don't always have to be right. So if something does sort of differ from your own views, be open to it, just allow yourself to listen to them, allow yourself to take in what they're saying and put away your need to be right. Because I think that's the one thing I've noticed in relationships that cause a lot of conflict is this need to be right. And then have a lot of empathy for them. So one way to do that is to put yourself in their shoes, understand where they're coming from, understand why they have this worldview, because it often stems from, their culture, their upbringing, their religion. So to understand that, have empathy for them, and just listen and communicate.
That is so true. I think that sometimes we step on top of our opinion with such a sort of level of authority that we don't allow anybody else in. And it's important to open the playing field and say, this is what I think, this is what you believe, and it's okay for us to be together with these differing beliefs. But let's just say if there's a circumstance whereby the beliefs are really, really different. Let's just say if you're dating somebody who's vegan and you're not vegan, and now you have to have a conversation about it. You have to have that type of sort of thinking where you're thinking, is this person actually compatible with me? And maybe no objectivity can even help in this scenario. Where do we go from there? Is that a relationship waiting to just break up? Or are there circumstances under which something can happen, something can help?
So I think here what's really important is to know yourself really well. So to have a good level of self-awareness and self-insight. And with knowing yourself really well, you're able to know what your boundaries are. You're able to know what's a deal breaker for you in a relationship. And in that way, you can say, okay, these are the things that I'm willing to compromise or willing to tolerate in someone. And these are the things I'm not going to. But I think, in knowing that and in understanding yourself really well, you're able to, understand what your partner likes and what your partner's worldview is. And in that way, you can sort of minimize the conflict and come to a compromise.
And that's such beautiful advice as well. I think what you said to us this morning in our 3-part was the tolerance actually comes from you being open enough to hear what your partner has to say. More importantly, seeking out the assistance of a counseling psychologist within the sort of space where you can actually have that conversation, and have a psychologist as your facilitator is vitally important to address any of the concerns and also get everything out on the table, which is part of strengthening the relationship. You don't want to break up with somebody because they think something else is just different. Please. We need to stay together, and I think this is where you come in. So, Sanam, thank you so much for your help this morning. We really appreciate you. As always, have a beautiful day.
Thank you so much for having me, and I'll see you soon.
Definitely. And if you're seeking professional assistance when it comes to anything, please email Sanam Naran. She is a fantastic psychologist and also the founder of Conscious Psychology. The email address is consciouspsychologyza, and that's at gmail.com. Give her an email And of course, she'll be able to assist you and navigate you through any relationship topics that you may have. It's all good.